I wanted to share this picture with you as well. I don't know how many people will recognise who this is. So, why do nurses develop chronic exhaustive conditions? I want to take us right back in history to the origins of modern nursing. And this is actually a picture of Florence Nightingale. And people are very familiar with the image of the lady with the lamp and her being in the Crimea and her powerful presence in working against often medicine and against the powers that be to establish the need for a nursing profession that was really organised. And Florence Nightingale's view of nursing was very much based in the idea of the family. So she was quite explicit about this, that in the hospital, the doctor is the father and he's in charge, and the nurse is the mother who does the nurturing and the caring and the healing, and the patient is the child. So quite a disempowering view of nursing. And we might think, well, that's Victorian ages. Is that still relevant at all? So I'm going to come on in a minute to a quote that I used in my thesis that shows just how relevant those early ideas are to nurses today. But I want to go back to this, why this picture of Florence Nightingale and not the picture of the lady with the lamp? Or indeed, actually, the lady with the hammer, which was her other title. The reason she was given that was because when she needed something and the doctor said no, she took a hammer to the padlock on the storerooms. And that was more how she was known amongst the medical profession at the time, the lady with the hammer. But this is Florence in her old age. At the age of 37, she went to bed. And she stayed there for the next 11 years, and she spent the rest of her life as a recluse and an invalid, are the words that are used around her. But at the same time, she's recorded as having worked 16-hour days in bed and being really driven by this sense that she had a debt to pay and that there were millions of people still out there that she had to save. And that is such a familiar picture now. So we can't apply the diagnoses of today. We don't know why she went to bed, but I think there's a very strong suggestion there that Florence Nightingale herself probably had a chronic exhaustive condition, if you look at those patterns. So the nursing profession that she established produced this quote, which I came across early on in my studies and hit me in the stomach like somebody had kicked me. And I used it, I shared it with the nurses that I was interviewing just to see if it had the same resonance for them. And although much of it is very outdated, there was still enough in there that was recognisable that they went, oh my God, yes. So I'll read it out for you now. No lesson is harder to learn for the new nurse than that of discipline. The subordination of her will, unquestioning, to that of another. She must bend under a law which is by no means always a law of love, never ask why, and as seldom as possible how. Be content to bear unmerited blame without murmuring, to be scolded for mistakes that were made in all good faith. She must not be surprised to find herself vehemently repressed if she ventures on the faintest suggestion. And generally, if she is at all forward or clever, she will be put in her right place. Among all the good qualities which a perfect nurse should possess, a little of that courage of endurance, that spirit of self-sacrifice, which was so important a point with the old religious sisters, would not be a bad thing. Cheerful obedience to discipline, the idea of accepting restraint in any spirit but a hostile one, loyalty to superiors, faithful submission to subordination, are the very rarest virtues of them all. Yet it is the spirit of self-sacrificing loyalty that leads to the highest and truest discipline, that remains loyally silent over its own wrongs and punctilious to a fault in the fulfilment of its duties. No life is more hard to live nobly than a life of loyal servitude. And that was Miss Mollett, who was a London matron in 1888, and almost certainly one of those original Nightingale nurses, being at that position at that time. So a really powerful quote, which really should be outdated, and yet which was still resonating with me and with my fellow nurses in the beginning of the 21st century. If you found this video helpful, please do click on like below and subscribe to my channel. You might also like to hop across using the links to my Facebook or LinkedIn pages where you'll find much more content.